Okay, I had so much fun doing the first one, I decided to do another. This is also from my book of short stories, Tales from an Apartment. This is called The Second Death of Timothy Mosley. I remember, I don't know, about 10 years ago, somewhere around there, my brother pointed out that I write a lot of stories with zombies. And my knee jerk reaction was, no, I don't. That's not true. And then I actually started thinking about a lot of the stories that I'd written. I was like, wow, I guess I do. I guess it's true. And it's like, rather than running from it, I've kind of embraced it. You know, if I think of a story that's captivating enough that I want to write it, if it has zombies, I'm not going to shy away from it. As a matter of fact, the last two big things I wrote uh, were centered around zombies in some manner or another. Dead Till Dawn, that was 2016. I mean, it was different in that zombies were the good guys. Uh, they were the heroes of the stories. Two zombies, two guys who had taken a pill to turn themselves into zombies for 72 hours. They weren't zombies in any traditional sense, but they were the good guys of the story. And then Part Time Zombie, which I published last year. And the title, as been pointed out by some reviews, is misleading and maybe it was semi intentional. I mean, I knew the story I was going to write, and the main character is zombie ish, but I guess you could say she's not technically a zombie. It's more of a body horror kind of story. If um, if you're a fan of 80s horror like me, good or bad, then you like movies like The Thing and Reanimator and From Beyond. From Beyond had a particular impact on Part Time Zombie. And I even had a character whose last name is Goldblum, after Jeff Goldblum from The Fly, another body horror movie. It it's the main character is more, it's more of a body horror thing. I mean, she's technically dead and reanimated, so that's what makes her a zombie. But that's not she's not a zombie by any other traditional sense, I guess you could say. So yeah, my brother threw it out there, and it. I had to gradually come around to acknowledging that yeah, I read a lot of zombie stories, and the second death of Timothy Mosley is another one of those stories, but it's not a typical zombie story. Again, if you like the story, by all means, you can find it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, pretty much anywhere you can find ebooks. I think I'm going to convert this to a physical book too. I I've done that with a couple other titles that I had that I just been sitting on for a while and just hadn't done anything with. And I'm gonna just look at everything I have, and if anything I have is what I would consider long enough, I'm probably gonna wind up converting it to a physical print. For anyone who likes to have that physical book. But here goes. Okay. The second death of Timothy Mosley. Tim awoke with a start. The first thing he saw with his groggy dead eyes was Felicia, gray edged, staring down at him. "What am I doing here?" he asked, but it came out as a garbled mess. The gray gradually faded. "Take it easy," she said. "You're safe now. You're home." Tim moaned. He was dead. At least he had been 5 minutes ago. That wasn't the bad part, though. Being whatever this was. Felicia had been obsessed with prolonging his life for as long as possible when he'd been dying. If anyone could have figured out how to bring someone back, it was his wife. He began a coughing fit. "Let me go," he said after it subsided. "Don't be silly." Felicia stood up. "You're only sitting in a chair. You can get up when you're able. But take your time." She'd misunderstood him. When it came to anything Felicia didn't want to hear, it was easy for her to do that. Tim took his time acclimating to his surroundings, acclimating to being back in this body. He looked himself over and was disgusted. His body was rotted and worn, naked bone exposed almost everywhere he could see skin. "Are you hungry?" Felicia asked. "Do you want anything to eat?" She walked over to the fridge and pulled out a bowl. "I have something, just in case." Tim could tell by the look on her face she wasn't saying something. "What is it?" he asked. She came close and waved the bowl under his nose. Something floppy and wet with red was in it, with a fresh, no-smell smell. "Some organ meat? Bones? Brains?" "Brains? Gross, Felicia. When did I ever eat anything like that?" He brushed it away. "I don't know." She scratched the back of her neck. "I thought you might have different, cravings now." "That's not human, is it?" Tim waggled a finger at the bowl. "No, it's all from a sheep. I got it from the butcher's this morning." He could tell she was flustered by the way her eyes darted around and how she held her arms stiffly at her sides. "Look, I'm sorry." She wiped the whole mess into the garbage can next to her, bowl and all. "I'm just trying, okay? I appreciate it, but no." "Whatever, okay? Never mind." She looked up at the ceiling and folded her arms. Tim thought it made his wife look like a 3-year-old. Tim took a deep breath, something rattling inside a lung. "Felicia, thank you. Seriously, I'm just not hungry. Can I have a hug?" "Really?" She turned her eyes on him, and he could see she was beaming again. "Yeah." She was standing by him before he could stand and wrapped her arms around him, squeezing tightly. Something snapped and something else squished, and when she pulled back, there was black goo on the corner of her forehead. "I missed you so much," she said. She searched his eyes with desperation. Tim could tell this was going to be difficult. Right now, she was waiting for him to say the same thing back, and the truth was he didn't. Sure, Tim had loved her when he was alive, and even now he could still feel something. But he was dead now. Things had changed. He took her by the shoulders. "Look, Felicia, so much has happened since you've been gone. They took the dogs away because I couldn't take care of them. Tim, I almost didn't make it." "Ruby and Irma?" He shook his head, realizing that was the sound that had been missing. They should have been licking his hands or been in a constant trot around the apartment. They'd both loved those dogs. He hugged her again. "Oh, I'm sorry." "But I'm better now. You're here now." She looked into his eyes again, and he saw the thing he hadn't been able to put his finger on before. Felicia had lost a piece of herself somewhere. The woman he'd fallen in love with had teetered on the edge of sanity and fallen into something black and hollow, and she was looking for him to pull her back. But he couldn't. "Felicia, what did you do? How did you bring me back?" She smiled and barked out a laugh. "It was no easy task, believe you me." Her volume was too loud. Tim's eardrums began snapping. "I looked up every book on the occult, researched human physiology. I even had to figure out some of the stuff for myself. There wasn't enough of you left." She shook her head. "I had to use other things to make you whole." The thought of his body not being entirely his body was skeevy, but he pushed back the feeling to deal with his wife. "Felicia, thank you. Thank you for thinking enough of me to bring me back. I know that had to have taken a lot from you." "What?" she said. Her eyes had gone flat. Crazy or no, Felicia had always been perceptive. "What are you, trying to push me off? Do you have something better to go do? Don't let me hold you." "Honey, I'm dead." He gestured to himself. "I mean, look at me. How are we supposed to have a life?" "I've thought about all that, Tim." She reached around and pressed him against her with a handful of butt. "All of it. Believe you me, I've had a lot of time to myself." The thought of intimacy with a warm, living body disturbed him, and it bothered him even more that it appealed to her on some level. The thought was disgusting. It was wrong. Even if he were capable of the mechanics of sex, he had no desire to inflict that upon the woman he had loved for so many years. Felicia, no. What do you mean? She was hurt. The rate her emotions were changing sealed Tim's opinion on her sanity. You don't want me anymore? It's not that. I'm dead. Even if I could. It's not right. Why do you want to leave me already? She pushed him away and wiped something slick on her jeans. I don't belong here anymore. I need to go back. How could... In the hospital, you clawed for every possible second. Now you're A-okay with not being alive? Yes. He shrugged. What's over there, huh? What's over there that's better than me? Nothing. There wasn't anything at all. I don't mean nothing. There's a something I can't quite describe. It's just without all this. Tim looked around, holding out his hands. And I was content. So you'd rather be nothing than be with me? Felicia covered her face with her hands and wept. I'm sorry. I just don't belong here. It's not you. It's not. You won't even try. Baby, I ran out of try in a hospital bed. He wrapped his arms around her and held her close. Do you know what I remember? She shook her head. You, holding my hand till the very end. I appreciate that. Something too far back to be a tear trickled down his face. Can you take me with you? You don't belong, Felicia. You're alive. You should grieve and get over me. I can't get over you. I can't. You're my soulmate. Tim rolled his eyes. He'd never believed in any such thing, but held his tongue. Do you really think there's only one soulmate? People's spouses die all the time. Should they just sit around and never remarry? Never have a life again? A love? How would you be here? Remember, your father is your mother's second husband. Tim was glad he'd thought of that. Felicia's mother had gotten married when she was 19, and her first husband had died in a car crash less than a year later. I guess not. Felicia let him pull her hands from her face. She stared at him for the first time. It seemed like she was really looking at him. You smell. He smiled and she smiled back. Thanks, I guess. I know what you're trying to do, she began. You can't really say it, though. I was prepared for this either way. She walked into the living room and Tim followed her. I didn't really know if I'd be able to bring you back, and I just thought, if I can't bring him here to me, then I'll go to him. The smile dropped from Tim's face, but it beamed on hers. Felicia unlocked the door. No matter what, we'll be together. We're meant to be together. Felicia, no, let's talk. You can't do this anyway. I'm still here. I probably could have held you together for a good 5 years or so. I figured by then I'd be ready to let you go, and then I could have counted the days until I died too. But when I'm gone, you'll probably fall apart in a matter of months, maybe even weeks. Felicia! Tim took a step toward her and she held up a hand. I have a gun. If you chase me, I'll blow my brains out. I have pills and I can make it easy, quiet. But you won't stop me. Please, no. I know you love me still. She threw open the door. That's why you lied to me about the other side. You didn't want me to try to follow you. Always thinking of me. Felicia blew him a kiss and stepped out the door. God, I love you. He tried to step outside, but there was something about being out there that frightened him. It was completely foreign to him. The light, the air, the sounds. That plus the threat of her violent suicide rooted him to the spot. Eventually, he shut the door. There were muddy tracks on the carpet from where she had dragged his coffin in. However she'd managed that. He stepped past it and crashed in the chair he'd awakened in. Something else leaked beneath him where he sat. He didn't move for a really long time. longing for tears that would never come. The end. Hope you enjoyed it. I might wind up doing a few more stories from this book of shorts. I hope you liked it. I hope you pick up the book and read them all yourself. Um, I I'm always working on something. If you follow me on Facebook at all, you probably have read that I am working currently on my first actual factual vampire novel. It is a little bit different than a typical vampire novel. I actually wrote about 4 years ago a young adult novel called Vampire, but I really wouldn't call that a vampire novel only because aren't really any vampires in it. It's the main character is like a half vampire. If I ever get back to it, I would explore that some more because there's actually some more to it that I'm intentionally not saying, but that also depends upon if Permuted will actually give me my rights back to that book. I've tried and so far no good, but hopefully you liked it. And once again, Tales from an Apartment. Finding anywhere ebooks are sold. Pick up a copy. Let me know what you think. Talk to you soon. Bye.